Starting our assembly, there's a couple decisions that we need to make up front. And we really need to know if we're going to use just strictly bottom up, make all of the parts, put them together, modify each one individually, or use some multi-body parts that have possible configurations, and the basis of taking on the characteristics of assemblies by not really being an assembly. And then top down would be that everything is tied to back to the assembly, and there's several examples of that. Going into the parts then, doing a basic analysis, we start looking at the similarities, and if I have to build a family of parts, I would really consider using the configurations and having one part with all of these items contained in it. So as we do the pegs and the brackets, we'll go both ways. But when it comes down to these quads and 2x2s and 3x3s and 4x4s, we'll go back through the process of adding these to the configuration, because I really don't want to have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 plus the other 4 or 5, so 10 separate parts that I have to deal with when I can manage it out of one part. So as far as the assignment goes, if you want to build 10 separate parts, you can follow the initial strategy of build one, and then we'll do a save as, or save, and then a save as copy and open, so that we can add to it and go through the next steps of the process. Configurations add a level of complexity to it, but you're going to encounter configurations in industry and in the commercial world, even just dealing with the Solidworks toolbox and fasteners, you're going to see those. So fly that out of the way, and the parts are in metric. So we'll get a metric part started, and then let's go with the pegs first, since there's 3 pegs and they don't have a lot of complexity to them. That would be a good way to start. So if we stay with their naming convention, the peg short, they should have gone peg mid or peg medium, mid, whatever, in that naming description to stay consistent. Mainly because when I do the configuration, I'm probably going to call it peg as the part name, and then I'll break the configurations into 3 separate names. Alright, so we have a 10 millimeter by 20 millimeter, 30 millimeter, and 40 millimeter. And not sure why they 20, 30, 40. They created a table for each one, I guess just in case, and the material is a steel material, so we'll stay with that. So first thing is to build our sketch. So going into the sketch, picking the front plane, inferring to the origin. Mod diameter, I haven't seen that one in a while, so it makes me wonder what setting I did to get that one to come up. And then we'll do the extrude base, and we'll give it a distance of 20 millimeters, and that'll give us our starting peg. So at this point, do an isometric. I have not set up a location, so we'll see if this goes back. Since templates was the last open folder, it's going to jump back in there. That's especially annoying if it went the 9 levels deep into program files, SolidWorks, SolidWorks Corp, SolidWorks, all the way down. So let's go with the my assignments, and we'll create a new folder. And this is for chapter 5, and 2 through 8, I believe, is what's on the assignment. Alright, so trying to stay somewhat consistent. We'll open up that folder, and then this is going to be the peg. And we'll give it a description of 20 or 10 by 20 so that we have the diameter, and then what we'll change is the lengths. So I save that one, and then immediately I can go back and do a save as. And in the lower, let me move that up a little bit, we can do save as copy as continue. So it will save the copy and then we stay in this file, or we just do a save as, and it doesn't really have much of an effect either way. Save as copy and open says that when I go to the by 30 and save it, then we come up, let's see if that tooltip will open up. There we go. So I'm in the 10 by 30 now, and I can change its length. And we want to do a rebuild because I did not go into the feature to make that change. When I rebuild it, it will update the length, and we'll save it one more time. Sure, got it. Save as, and then we'll go save as copy and open. And give it the 40. Alright, so I'm not ready to deal with part numbers just yet. We can do that if we have the custom properties set up, or we want to go into the file properties and start to accumulate some of that data, metadata. At this point, that's not my my highest priority. So we'll make sure, double click, change it to 40, rebuild it, and save. Alright, so that gives me 3 pegs, but each of those pegs is now in a separate file. And the downside is that if I bring in the wrong peg to the assembly, then I have to do a replace rather than just a quick switch. So the optional, and this is just to introduce the logic, is to create a file, and then notice that all 3 of them were open and it went to the next file. That when I create a new part, then I have to have a basic shift in my my thought process. So we open up the sketch, we create the 10 millimeter, that's pretty much the same. I kind of want to think about what all of the thicknesses and elements are going to be a little bit beforehand, kind of building in that design intent of looking into my magic crystal ball and hoping it's not cracked or too cloudy, so we can get a good sense. So the base peg, it will still leave at, now there's not a 10 by 10, and don't know that that would be of any use, but we could leave it. We'll start with the 10 by 20. And there's pretty much 3 ways to manage the configuration, maybe 4, depending on how we go about it. So right now I'm in the Solidworks display state. That's a carryover. Somewhere along the line I checked a box to tell it to keep that, and then I keep saving it into the template. So I'm just going to go to display state 1, and what this would do is within the configurations I would be able to see if it's under the properties. Right now we're linking the display states to configurations, so if when I create this configuration, each configuration will get a display state. So if I wanted a red peg, a black peg, a blue peg, I could build those into the visual part of the configuration. Alright, so pretty much the default is whatever I want it to be. I don't really care. Adding a configuration is where we're going to start picking up the naming. So peg, and then this is going to be the 10 by 20. If I needed a description, we can go 10 millimeters diameter by 20 millimeter length, or just 20 millimeters. And then what I want to check for is if I retain the document name, any bill of materials, anything that references this configuration is just going to say part 3. Well, when I name it, it'll be PEG. So I want to go to the configuration name. User specified can be kind of tedious in that if you pick up those names, then you have to keep everything in line manually. Just staying with the configuration name and staying consistent on your naming is a lot easier. So our difference is we have PEG 10 by 20, and the default still shows the brackets with the part 3 name. So let's go ahead and save that. And then this will just hold the generic placeholder of PEG. And if I go ahead and create an additional configuration, then this will be the PEG 10 by 30. And see if I can stay consistent with my, maybe I didn't put, alright, so document name goes to configuration name. I go ahead and accept it. And I can always go back into the properties, and since I didn't put PEG in that one, we'll just go ahead and leave the descriptions there. Alright, so at this stage, if I wanted to change to the 30 millimeter, I need to double click, and then our stack of boxes over here that says all configurations, I want to make sure that I click on that and tell it just this configuration. Alright, so 30 millimeters, and enter or checkbox and rebuild, and then save. My double check then is to go back to the 10 by 20, make sure it updates, 10 by 30, and then the default is the PEG. Alright, so let's stay in the 10 by 20. And the second, so if I wanted the 10 by 30, I could create a 10 by 30 configuration, or 10 by 40, change the configuration, and then add the 40 just to that configuration. The next step up is to look at the configuration at each of the levels. So if I look at a configure feature at the sketch level, properties text file is not showing up, so that has either been pointed or it's somewhere else. So right now we have not picked up a like the diameter or something to control. But if I wanted a 20 by 30 and a 20 by 40, then out of the sketch I would be controlling that diameter. Since I'm controlling the lengths, I want to make sure that I'm at the extrude level and configure the feature, and we will still have to figure out. That's probably why I'm getting the symbols aren't quite pointed in the right direction, is getting that mod diameter. Alright, so I can go PEG, and this is the 10 by 40, and adding that to the mix, then double clicking and saying that it is 40, and applying it. Now I will get that item added to the mix and we'll get the length. I would still have to go through the properties, and it picked up the name. So if I wanted to stay consistent, it picked up the configuration name, PEG 10 by 40, which is good. And then if I want to stay consistent, then I'm going to need to go to modify the description, or we just modify the other ones to go with. Alright, so using bill of materials refers to the description. I'm not sure if that's overwriting the configuration. We'd have to try that and experiment. That looks consistent. I don't know why it didn't stay with the naming, but in the process right now I have display state 1, display state 3, not sure what happened to display state 2, either that or it was consumed by the PhotoWorks. and then double clicking, nope, don't want to rename, and then display state 4. So if I did want to change colors, we can go into the appearances, and when we go appearances, then is it just the face that I've selected, the feature that I've selected, the body, or the entire part? So we would want to go to the body level, and one of the things to check for when we pick our color is that right now the display states are all display states, and we would go to just this display state. So can't really tell the difference in that gray with the default gray. Either that or my video card is still having fun with the background. Let's go. I'm looking for it out of the configuration. It's in the body. So we'll do the not so bright red. Make sure that it's stayed to this this configuration, and then last would be the 40, and set the appearances. So this is optional. You don't have to set colors. Sometimes it helps visually to have those separations between the items, and sometimes if it is the exact same color as one of your selections, then it also has that conflict in your mix. So that gives us a peg, gives a basic introduction to the configurations, and next we'll go into creating the brackets.